Many people believe that at some point this upcoming season, the Chicago Bulls will look to move on from one of Nikola Vucevic and or Zach LaVine, as well as some other veterans. Today, we're going to talk about an article that pointed out 3 players that the Chicago Bulls could target if they decide to move certain players in deals. We're going to look at all that, plus the mailbag, right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. So I want to start off talking about this article that pointed out 3 potential targets for the Chicago Bulls if they were to move on from mainly Zach LaVine. Now, many people are going to say, well, Hayes, the Chicago Bulls would be kind of, right now, they don't really have the ability to target anyone because they are more so waiting for somebody to want Zach LaVine. And you're ideally right. But these are 3 players that maybe the Chicago Bulls could get back if they do look, if these teams are interested in Zach LaVine. And these all have been teams that have been rumored to be interested in Zach LaVine for numerous different reasons. We're going to talk about the reasons why as we go through this. The first player that is pointed out here is Brandon Ingram with the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, this is a team that we even have a voicemail on today talking about the Pelicans could target. When we talked about teams that could become desperate, right? That was a week or so ago. There's a list of teams that could become desperate and explore the trade market for really any scorer that's out there. And the Pelicans were one. And the Pelicans do have a trade chip in Brandon Ingram, who may not fit with where this roster is going. You look at them having CJ McCollum there, and that could be something that is a bit of a hindrance in them going after Zach LaVine. But the pairing of Zach LaVine and DeJounte Murray has been something that has intrigued Bulls fans for quite a while. Clearly, that's not where the Bulls are right now. And with the Pelicans just acquiring DeJounte Murray, they could be looking for somebody who could be more of a long-term pairing with them. CJ McCollum is a player that could be coming towards the tail end of his NBA career. And while maybe Zach LaVine may have to come off the bench or even play the 3 going forward, they do have a lot of wing defenders down there. But the question is what the Pelicans would then want to do with Zach LaVine going forward. You look at the Pelicans depth chart. Yes, they have Herb Jones there, who is a really good wing defender, a solid player, a role player. They also have Trey Murphy III there as well, who's another guy that some people think could be ready to step up, maybe into a multiple roles for him. He's a 6'8" shooting guard. And so there's some similarities there between him and Zach LaVine when it comes to size, but Trey Murphy's a way better defender, not nearly the scorer that Zach LaVine is. So if the Pelicans were trying to make a move to bring in Zach LaVine, would that make sense outside of the pairing next to DeJounte Murray? Things don't fit perfectly right now. Of course, if they move on from Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones at that point is going to become that starting 3. You got to ask yourself, is McCollum at that point better coming off your bench playing either guard position and having a guard rotation of DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Zach LaVine, and CJ McCollum? How much could that go into the future going forward? But then again, as I said all the time, I'm not a Pelicans fan, so they ain't me to worry out. Now, I did believe when they talked about the fact of how Zach LaVine could be somebody that the Pelicans could target in that article. I believe that. And, Brandon Ingram is an expiring contract, so even though Brandon Ingram is a hell of a player that I like, if the Bulls don't see him as part of their long-term future, they could look to explore signing trades with him in the offseason, not sign him outright, bring him back if they do. Let's say, he ends up being a piece that can help them. Things like that. If Modest Bucilis isn't ready to start the 3, Brandon Ingram could theoretically do that. Maybe you start Brandon Ingram for a couple of seasons, as Modest Bucilis comes along. There's a lot of different opportunities there, but I do believe that Brandon Ingram, if for nothing else, that the contract aspect of the fact that it is expiring could be something that entices the Bulls as they are looking to get off the type of money that Zach LaVine is on right now. Brandon Ingram last year, 20 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5.7 assists on 49% shooting from the field. He's also only 26 years old, right? So he's not that much older than like a Kobe White. But again, that does extend your timeline some. There's already a nice gap between like the Josh Giddey, Modest Bucilis from the Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White timeline. But, and Patrick Williams is really on that along with Giddey and Modest Bucilis as well as far as age-wise. So that's something that you're looking at. But again, it's something that the Bulls may be more so looking at the contract part of it. He's as well as a 35% shooter. But you guys can let me know what you think on that down below. All right, next up, Keldon Johnson with the San Antonio Spurs. Now, Keldon Johnson is a player that I love. Now, at being 24 years old, 6'5", 220 pounds, he's primarily played small forward his career. I know some people are going to look and say, are we bringing in more small forwards? He should be a shooting guard. But he's played the position shooting guard, and he's a pretty solid two-way player on top of that. If the Spurs are looking to kind of jumpstart this thing that they have with Wemby after having Chris Paul there, if they're looking to do that and Keldon Johnson just doesn't fit it, we've heard some rumors that they've already kind of shopped Keldon Johnson as well in some situations and scenarios. Could that be something that they move on from? You look at Stephen Castle being there as a young guard who could take over. That would be adding a lot of age to the San Antonio Spurs. Devin Vassell you have there as well, but you just added Chris Paul, who definitely upped the age, and Harrison Barnes. So if the Spurs kind of see this thing as we're now trying to compete, which would mean that Wemby hits a huge leap this year, that's the only way I really see that. Keep in mind, the Spurs have up to 3, I think almost 4 lottery picks this upcoming year, so they're going to be getting younger regardless. And that's the thing that maybe you're going to look at. They could very well find themselves as soon as this offseason in a similar situation to the OKC Thunder, where they just have so many young pieces that maybe they start trying to sell those guys off for future picks. Now, I don't think that the Bulls would get Devin Vassell and like at Zach LaVine for that type of thing. Like, you're going to have to include something because Devin Vassell is younger. But if the Spurs are willing to take on the remaining money of LaVine's contract, which this article does push forward, Keldon Johnson should be definitely one of the players that the Chicago Bulls target in that, even if they do have to give up a future first-round pick, at least in my opinion, considering the Spurs are probably going to keep our pick regardless. So that's something to look at. Maybe even the protections that the Bulls have on that pick can become part of that deal as well. That is another aspect that could make the Spurs a solid trade partner with the Chicago Bulls and something to look out for there. Next up, Corey Kispert from the Washington Wizards. Now, I already know most Bulls fans, much like me when I read this article, I took it as, why the fuck would we want anything from the Washington Wizards? That's just honest. Like, God honest, I understand that, right? But you look at Corey Kispert and what he did as a catch-and-shoot player, as well as just a player that could fit next to Josh Giddey and Kobe White a little bit more seamless than maybe a Zach LaVine. He's a career 38% three-point shooter, taking 5 of those per game. So that's a really good volume on top of that. Averaging 13 points per game last season on 38% three-point shooting, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, a half a steal per game. This is a guy that also is pretty decently from the field as well. 48% last season, 48 for his career. It was almost 50% the year before that. So this is an efficient role player level guy that's 25 years old, another young player that could pair with your young core that you're looking at going forward. But the question is then is that why would the Wizards be interested in Zach LaVine? Now, the only thing that I could think, the only reason that I could think that the Wizards could be interested in Zach LaVine is if they move off some of their other pieces. While they did acquire Malcolm Brogdon this past offseason, you have some older pieces there. This still seems like a team that's prepared to go younger. They have Valanciunas there as well. Saddiq Bey. It's just a weird makeup of a team. Unless the Wizards are just absorbing contracts, at that point, they're probably going to be looking for some draft picks back at that case. But when you look at it, he's a guy that can shoot the ball. He can pair next to Josh Giddey, take advantage of Josh Giddey's passing, and space the floor a little bit for either Kobe or Josh Giddey to get to work. In no way am I saying of any of these targets are like perfect, seamless acquisitions for the Chicago Bulls, but it comes down to what they could want. And maybe it isn't even the Wizards. I mean, the Zach LaVine. Maybe the Wizards end up being a destination we dump off Nikola Vucevic to. It's just when you start getting into that area of things, that's where you start looking at having to give up assets, especially if you're getting a young piece back. And I just don't know if that's what the Chicago Bulls are going to be aiming to do. It seems like they're going to be willing to they're trying to hold on to all their future assets. But maybe if it takes like the Portland pick, which turns into a second round pick, something like that, maybe that's enough to do it. I don't know. But these are 3 players, at least on the surface. The players I'm interested in, between the contracts, youth in some cases, shooting in other cases, I'm interested in these players for varying degrees of reasons. It just comes down to, does it make sense for where the Bulls are going? That's the biggest question here. Not a lot of long-term money throughout most of these deals as well. That's something that you can also look at. And I guess if you're trying to pick out what can help you, Corey Kispert's a restricted free agent at the end of the year. So, you know, the Bulls don't necessarily have to take back long-term money if he just doesn't fit, or some of the other young forwards step up in a case like that. Keldon Johnson is the one that has the longest contract with this. He's under contract until 2026-27. but it's only $17.5 million. So it's right a little bit above mid-level exception and less than what Patrick Williams has made. And Keldon Johnson, at least as a scorer, has shown way more consistently than Patrick Williams. But let me know what you guys think about these three players: Brandon Ingram, Keldon Johnson, and Corey Kispert, between the players that the Bulls could target if they look to move on from some of their veteran pieces. And would you be willing to part with a second, maybe the Portland pick, in a case like that? Or in the case of the Spurs, would you try to work out a deal to maybe you lessen those protections? Maybe you make it lottery protected, something like that. Let me know what you guys think on all that down below. But with that said, it is Saturday. That means it is Mailbag Day. That means we got to get into your voicemails. This first voicemail, this one's from a first-time caller, Vikram.
Yo, what's up? My name is Vikram. You can call me Vic. I'm a first-time caller, and I've been listening for like a few years. You're a great podcaster, and you've been doing. I tune into you like every single day. Just wanted to leave my thoughts on a possible trade idea for Ayo. I've been watching a couple of your podcasts recently, and there's been a lot of talk about Ayo getting traded. So if Lonzo Ball comes back and he's healthy, and say like Dalen Terry, who I see as like more of a shooting guard, small forward, Zach LaVine, natural position, more of a shooting guard. If there seems to be a lot of like guard heavy lineups here, so how would you feel about an Ayo for a Jaime Jaquez swap in the Miami Heat? Maybe like a pet pick or a couple of swaps, something like that, because I think Ayo is the better player. But let me know your thoughts. I think it would provide like a great positional versatility for the Bulls, and especially if Lonzo comes back healthy. If Zach LaVine has literally no trade value even after this season, I think that if Josh Giddey and Kobe White work together and Zach LaVine has to stay on the squad, or we have to like attach like picks or something, we can at least mitigate doing that if we give up Ayo for like a Jaime Jaquez type of trade. Let me know what you think.
All right, so the Ayo Dosunmu trade, here's the thing. I get it. The Bulls are a guard-heavy team, and I understand what you try to do there, right? I think this is a trade where I understand what you're getting at. I don't necessarily agree with trading on from Ayo Dosunmu, and I don't think there's any way that the Heat give up Jaime Jaquez right now. I just don't. But then when you start looking at the intricacies of what you presented here, right? It's basically a second-round pick that's been very promising for another young player in Jaime Jaquez that, people didn't really expect for him to extend to the levels that he extended to. And maybe the Heat are looking to take advantage of that. Now, he is a first-round pick right outside the lottery, so that's a little bit of difference there. But I just don't see the Heat being willing to give up with Jaime Jaquez. I don't see it happening. And if the Bulls do look to give up Ayo Dosunmu, I think it comes by the nature of a few different things, which I've talked about in several other videos, so I'm not going to rehash that here. I just would like to see them hold on to Ayo Dosunmu, and that's just my personal opinion. But you guys can let me know what you think down below. All right, let's get into this next one. This one is from Brian Washington.
Hey, what's up, Hayes? It's Brian from the West Side, man. Just listening to all the trade talks about Kobe, Ayo, and all this hype about Giddey. The man ain't even played a damn half a game of Bulls basketball. They talking about this guy like he's Jordan, and he's finna just come and change the fucking game. Like, let these young players play, even if they don't have a good season next year. When are we going to let the players grow together? Let them fuck up together. Let them have success together. It's like we keep trying. How young do the Bulls, or how young are they trying to get? Are we trying to watch babies in diapers and shit run on the court? It's like, damn, we got a young team. Let these players grow even if they don't have a great season next year. Let them grow and play together. Let them build the chemistry. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's not the players that's the reason they're not having a successful season, or, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's the coaching. It's the style of basketball, because I've seen the Bulls trade away players and they went elsewhere and had a great fucking season under a better coach. Maybe that's where the change needs to be. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let these players play. Let them grow together, man. We ain't gonna never have no good team if they keep on trading. They talking about trading Kobe and how younger Jalen Green is. He's just fucking 2-year difference. It's like, damn, these young guys, let them play. Let them grow together. Let them, you know what I'm saying, develop some type of chemistry with each other. It's like, damn, you're going to trade younger. Ain't no guarantee. And all these players that they talking about coming that plays in the college, A lot of players come out of, we had number one draft picks that was in the NBA that never became shit. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no guarantee that game going to transfer over to the NBA level. They just great in college. You know what I'm saying? There's no guarantee nowhere. Let these players grow. Let them build something. You know what I'm saying? Ayo and Kobe, they got something going right now. Let them keep that going. You going to bring in Josh Giddey and then talk about getting rid of them too? It's like, no, let them play together. Let Josh Giddey play together. Josh Giddey fuck around and have a great season. This is how the Bulls work. He fuck around and have a great season, and they still trade his ass. Because that's just how the Bulls system always have been. Look at Jimmy Butler. Look at all these players the Bulls let go and they went elsewhere and had great seasons under new systems. Maybe it's the style of basketball the Bulls playing. Maybe it's the coaching. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's all that. What's your thoughts on all that, man? Like, let these players grow, man. Let them play first. You're going to get rid of them before you even start the goddamn season. That's what it sounds like everybody wants them to do.
Brian went off. And I agree with you, right? When you think of the people, and like I said, it's like the new writers thing to talk about. And some Bulls fans, we need to give up Kobe because of XYZ. Let these guys grow together. Now, I will say this. While I agree with you, and I've said this multiple times on multiple episodes, why would you be willing to give up on players that are on reasonable contracts that are still young that have developed for you? But there is a business aspect, and you got to think about the fact that Kobe and Ayo are up for contract extensions. And I think that a lot of the thinking that the writers are putting into this is that the Bulls want to avoid being in the situation they are with Zach LaVine, where you're stuck with a player that is good but isn't good enough to really extend your team, and you have to pay them max level money. That's why I think a lot of this is rooted in. Writers are looking at the writing on the wall and saying, if Kobe has another season like he did last year, he's going to command max level money. And I think that that's what they're looking at. But to me, you got to be willing to bet on the guys that have developed for you, right? In your system and on your team that were drafted here. And so I don't want to see the Bulls. I'm like you. Like, we've given up on a lot of players that have gone somewhere else and excelled. And some of those have been in different situations. Like, I think the Jimmy Butler situation is completely different. He was here for a while. The Bulls, that front office just admitted, hey, we don't know how to build around him. And I'd rather a front office admit that they don't know how to build around somebody than to keep trying and failing. Now, I think it's stupid that they weren't able to build around Jimmy Butler. I think that's asinine. But the fact that they recognized it and said, we got to do something here, there's a level of awareness in that, I would guess, to say that you at least you were aware that you were stupid. So I guess you get a little bit of credit for that, but at the same time, I still look at it and say, like, that's a failing of the front office. And so I agree with everything you said here. Yep, let these young players develop. Let them see what they turn into. And at this point, like, I mean, at least it wasn't just because the Bulls were bad with having Zach LaVine. For example, if the Bulls had all their draft picks over this last time, look at where they would have been. They would have had a nice young crop of talent there. So the difference between the Kobe situation, I think many people are overlooking, is that the Bulls have not made, at least not yet, a bunch of moves to give up a bunch of assets to just become a play-in team. This is a team now that holds all their future, basically. You have your young players that are developed for you. You have the right to give them the contracts that they deserve. And at the same time, if it does not work out, you can actually bring in young, cost-effective talent if you're bad, because you own your own picks outright. So that's a different perspective to look at with that I don't know if everybody's taking a look at. But, we'll see there. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Vaughn.
What's up, Hayes? This is Vaughn. So we're in the dead of the off-season, so I wanted to come to you with a hypothetical question. So my question to you would be, if for some, crazy reason, crazy things have happened, but if Billy Donovan coaches a good defense, solid defense with this team, and the offense is booming, let's say, top 10 or something like that. And keep in mind, it's all hypothetical, of course, because it's probably unlikely. But if everybody's booming and Zach LaVine, has stepped up and he's doing his thing, he's looking like number 2, number 1, he's looking really good and he's fitting into the team. Everybody's flowing, winning cheers, all the bad blood that people may have between each other. And let's say the Bulls are top 5 or out in the playoffs, top 5, top 6, something like that, even top 4, whatever. Do you still see the Bulls moving Zach LaVine, even if they're up high, or do you see them, looking at that and being like, you know what, we want to stay competitive, we're going to keep this thing together because it's flowing? do you think they would do, and what would you do? That's all I got for you guys. All right, peace.
All right. So I guess this is a real crazy scenario because if the Bulls are top 5 to 6, as you said in this voicemail, we're partying. I ain't thinking about no trades at that point. But here's the thing. Would the Bulls front office trade Zach LaVine regardless? And I say that it's probably 50-50, right? If Zach LaVine buys in, the bad blood's solved, and these young players take a leap, Zach LaVine's fitting in, and this team is competing for a 5 or 6 seed, which means you're avoiding the play-in. Yeah, I think that the Bulls try to reevaluate things at that point, and maybe you're willing to pay the money of Zach LaVine at that point. Now, you still got to think about the extensions coming for Kobe and Ayo down the stretch, and Josh Giddey coming up here soon, so that's going to put you right back in the area of kind of being tight in there and money-wise. But with Nikola Vucevic expiring, Lonzo Ball expiring, maybe at that point you look at some things, and it really comes down to how well these young players have stepped up. I think it all still comes down to that. And if they stepped up big time, that's when you're willing to take a little bit more risk, and maybe just then. I mean, 5 or 6 is where you start, because then you got to look at it. Modest Vucevic is still a rookie. He's going to grow some more, so maybe then you're saying that ups your ceiling. Josh Giddey's not done growing. If you get something from a Jalen Smith, a Julian, like that is a really intriguing prospect, and I would love to be in that situation is what I'll say. So we'll see. All right, let's get into the next one. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. I just got done watching your video about the rumor of Luke's going to Golden State trade. Personally, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Not because I don't want Moody, but it's just I don't think it'd be a good idea to trade Vooch unless you can probably, make a move that also can free up some more space, like trading Vooch and someone like Javon Carter to the Warriors for Wiggins, maybe. And I'm throwing Javon Carter because I just don't see anyone taking him for any reason. So you're probably going to have to buy him out. And I know it doesn't help the future cap space, but I think it's easier to move Wiggins after next year than it would be to move Vooch in a sense, because his style of play, while still can be useful in certain teams, it's a small number of teams. And Wiggins, who is still young enough to draw interest, still athletic, making less than $28 million a year, that you can move that. However, I think a better deal would be made if it was like a 3-team deal with Portland, where Portland gets their first round back from us, along with someone like Carter and Looney. The Warriors get Vooch and Bikini, while the Bulls get Moody and maybe Robert Williams III. I know he had a knee injury last year, but if he's at 100%, that'll be fine. Because while I really want to see what Sanogo can do, I'm not going to judge what he did in the G League and, the Summer League games. That I'm not going to pretend like that translates well into, every night NBA minutes. So for now, that's how I think would be a better deal for Boots, a move that gets them both younger and at size, even if it messes up the cap a little bit. Either get someone like Wiggins or Mooney and Robert Williams III. But what's your opinion? Thanks.
Reggie, bro, you got to stop with the trades, bro. You just got to stop. You're defeating the purpose of the Vooch trade. In that rumored Warriors trade, you're getting back basically all expiring contracts and a promising young player that you can extend or not. You trying to make all these different permutations. See, this is where you got to give the trade ideas a break. Every single you got to give the trade ideas a break, because you just worked a trade that was pretty straightforward, that you're getting expiring contracts back, to now you're trying to add a third team to get this piece, to get that piece, to do that. Like, that's where we start getting too much into 2K. It's too much 2K here. And I love you, Reginald. Keep leaving the voicemails, but bro, I've told you this before. It's always trade talk with you. You got to do more than trade, because when you start getting into, well, you can move. I've said it before. When you start doing all that, that's where you start getting into the realm of being unrealistic, bro. So I get what you're saying, but I think that you're missing the point that in the rumored Vooch trade that you're now bouncing off on, you're freeing up nearly $30 million this season and next season, right? So that's what you got to look at as well. So that's what I'll say to that one, Reginald. Thanks for leaving that voicemail. Let's get into this last voicemail. This one's from Shay.
Hey, I'm calling about the Chicago Bulls. Look, man, I know a lot of people have talked about this over and over again, but I believe that a team is going to get desperate and to make a trade for Zach LaVine. Now, look, I understand that Zach LaVine has had the highest scoring and the highest season last season, but let's face it, a lot of teams like the Los Angeles Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers are definitely going to look for a scoring option, especially put next to James Harden and or LeBron James. And also, you also got to think about it. The New Orleans Pelicans, although they have C.J. McCollum is slowly but surely coming out of his prime. So you're going to need somebody to pair up with DeJounte Murray, especially if Brandon Ingram is traded and you don't know if Zion Williams can stay healthy. Another thing with this Nikola Vucevic thingy. I know a lot of people have been throwing the whole, trade him for this and get a whole bunch of players back. Look here, let me tell you something. At the end of the day, the man still gives you 18 and 11. You could get at least 1 second-round pick for him. I'm not saying first-round pick, but, hey, if you can get something for DeMar DeRozan, you can at least get 1 second-round pick for Nikola Vucevic. But, hey, that's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Pelicans being interested in pairing him with DeJounte Murray. Now, I talked about that a little bit at the opening. That is a possibility. And there have been multiple outlets, both Pelican writers and Bulls writers, that have wrote that could be something that could happen, right? So I do think that there is a world in which, I'll say there's a world. I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion, but there is a world in which maybe the Pelicans do become interested in pairing DeJounte with his friend Zach LaVine. And that is a backcourt that I do think will work well together. I really do think that as a backcourt that'll work well together. You got some other things between Trey Murphy and Herb Jones to figure out, even without worrying about Ingram and C.J. McCollum. But maybe they're willing to roll the dice there. Maybe. Now, as far as Vooch, I think the Bulls are going to be looking to get back a pick for anybody that they can. They're trying to recoup picks from everything that they've given up, and they'd be right to try to see what they can get, if they can get any type of pick for Nikola Vucevic. And maybe they can. In any type of trade, I think that would take bringing back some bad salary, maybe even at that point long-term salary, but maybe you're willing to do it if you're getting a pick back, not just a second at that point, but you just never know. So we'll see there. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.